Hey there, Flunkie Force, is Game Flunkie. I gotta get better at doing these podcasts more frequently, because these actually are more popular on the channel than anything else, believe it or not. Let's Plays, giveaways, well, I haven't done a giveaway in a long time, but I haven't moved from 120 subscribers, so, okay. Anyway, so, as you can tell by the thumbnail, today's podcast, we're going to be talking about MMORPGs, MMOs, and if you don't know what they are, they're massive online role-playing games. Is it massive multiplayer online role-playing game? Yeah, so. And then obviously MMO is short for massive multiplayer online. Alright, so we're going to talk about it, basically where I think the genre is going, because it's really a culture and a subculture that I've been entrenched in for the good part of 10 years. And I've played everything from Fiesta Online to World of Warcraft to Champions Online. I have tested probably every MMO I can get my hands on and I can afford. I played everything from Aurora Kingdom. I played anime-inspired games. I played realistic ones. I played Secret World Legends. I just got done trying that out. Really fun game. You should check that out. So I'm pretty much engrossed in MMO and MMORPG genre. By the way, if you hear my fan on in the background, it's hot. It's like 100 degrees in my room. I keep my door shut so I can record. And my computer is going to get hot. I mean, it's not going to get hot because I'm not recording gameplay or anything like that. And that's why I haven't done a video far as like Let's Plays and stuff, because it's hot as fuck in my room and I don't have central heating and air, so I want to stay cool out in the living room. I really can't record out there, so I'm stuck in here. So that kind of explains why you hear a loud ass fan. My bad, but I don't have a heat stroke and I don't want my computer to punch me in my face. But going back to what I was saying before, so I've been entrenched in the MMO genre. Now the problem, one of the couple things I'm going to touch up on is where is the genre going? Is it stale? Is it stagnant? Because you kind of hear that every so often. Every like third or fourth quarter of every year, when the year starts to wrap up, a lot of questions come out. Where is the genre at? Is MMO starting to fail? Are they getting stagnant? And it's sort of, in my opinion, like I said, I haven't been around as long as some other people, but I put quite a big stake into MMOs, and I kind of want to give my opinion on it. So please comment below. Let me know what your opinions are. I'm not going to judge. Please comment back. Talk to me. Like I said, another thing too is I know people are commenting on my videos. It's just YouTube notifies me in weird ways. I don't know. I get comments till like 4 or 5 days later. It's fucking weird. And once the heat spell sort of dies down, I'll come back to my room and just type away and comment to you guys. But anyway, let's get into it. So one of the big MMOs I'm actually going to jump into right now is one made by, I won't get the company right, but it's called Albion Online. Now, Albion Online is an interactive sandbox MMORPG. Now, what's really cool about Albion is, one has the online, not the online, but it has the sandbox feature, which the best way to describe sandbox is a big open world with very limited to almost no load time. Things I think you only load into is like the dungeons and things like that. The best way to compare a sandbox to is the opposite of World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft has a massive world, but to get to like other parts, like where the elves are located, if you're a human, and you spawn in when you go to the elves realm, you have to like load in, ride a boat and load in. So sandbox pretty much means a big open world, and there are tons and tons of sandbox. Ark Survival Evolved is a kind of a localized sandbox. Rust, things like that. Of course, Albion. Albion is sort of different though, because it is a sandbox MMO, but it can encompass tons and tons of players without having limiting the scale. Because things like Ark, and there's a reason why Ark is, because Ark is more. I might be wrong, I don't know, but I think it's just because the more details and the more the world is more vibrant and it's bigger in a sense, so you can't only house so many people, the server can only take so much. With a game like Albion, the characters are kind of smaller, they're kind of like bird's eye view, so not as much stress, and you're allowed to access more players onto the servers. That's one style of MMO that Albion is, which I have nothing against it. It is a great game. Oh, here it is. Albion Online is a sandbox MMORPG set in an open medieval fantasy world. It has a fully player-driven economy. All equipment items are player-crafted, and you can freely combine armor pieces and weapons in our unique classless system. So basically, that's it. But then you have other styles of MMORPGs, like you've got first-person shooters. Here's another one, Global Online. I think it was. You've got. Then you kind of have your combat action-oriented MMORPGs, like Terra. Black Desert Online, things of that nature. So there's a lot of MMOs out there that just kind of, people would say, saturate the market. You kind of have your sub-genre MMOs. They're action-oriented, or they are sandbox-oriented, but they're also economy-driven. Like, Albion is almost sort of heavy economy-driven. Sorry. But then you got games like Arcade, where it's definitely guild-based, economy-driven, kind of like Albion. But it has some quirks and flaws. Everybody knows about Arcade. Same with WildStar. WildStar is another one. WildStar is like the futuristic World of Warcraft in a sense that, but it has great art style, beautifully done world. It has a great system. It's just the problem was, as far as WildStar, they designed a game for a niche or a certain group of players, which was hardcore raiders, and even the hardcore raiders then couldn't even complete some of the raids. They were just so difficult. That's a little synopsis though, like MMORPGs. But over time, MMORPGs have changed and evolved in so many different ways. It's kind of hard to put a finger down on what exactly an MMO and an MMORPG is. A lot of people would argue that Destiny and Destiny 2, which is coming out soon, is MMORPG or an MMO. Some people say it's not because of the design, and to me, I think at one point the developers of, I think, Bungie or Activision said, no, it's not an MMO. Clearly to me, it's an MMO. If Marvel Heroes Omega and Marvel Heroes on PC is called MMO of some kind, then Destiny's an MMO. Because an MMO is in my opinion, is a large player base that can group together, maybe not all at once, obviously, but maybe in like pockets, that can go play raids, dungeons, communicate. That is basically the basis of an MMO, or an MMORPG actually, because an MMORPG allows you to take on a role that's not predestined, that you can craft a character, play through that role, and then thus gives you MMORPG, the aspect of the RPG part. Now, it goes back to what I was saying before. Is the genre sort of stagnant, or is it dying off? Well, to answer that question, it's to sort of take a look back in the previous, 4 or 5 years. Some of the MMOs that were hyped out the ass, but kind of fell short. Some of the ones off the top of my head are The Division. Ubisoft's was going to be a supposed hit title that a post-apocalyptic New York was hit by a virus that pretty much collapsed part of the northeastern seaboard of America. You, and along with the rest of the Division, try to reestablish a foothold in New York and their neighboring areas to bring back American civilization, sort of, in a kind of dynamic sense of fighting for survival. But it didn't pan well. Really bad patches, horrible dynamic. Some parts of New York were blocked behind item walls, were supposedly with expansions that you had to pay for. So there's a lot of things down the road Ubisoft kind of did not mention, nor hint at to the last minute. It is a beautifully run game, and I think it has the Snowdrop engine, if I remember correctly. So it's beautifully done. And Ubisoft, and towards Ubisoft, I will say this: Ubisoft lately, especially with a game like For Honor, which has nothing to do with this right now, but they've kind of have a concept idea, and it's a great idea, but they just fall short. But back to Division. Division just did not meet the requirements. Now, is that because MMORPG players are fickle or MMO players are fickle? That could be. I am one of those people. I'm very fickle. The reason being, and to go on into what I'm saying before, is this genre, it's not like a first-person shooter solo genre. It's not like a single-player genre. When I say first-person shooter solo, I mean, it's not a game like Division or Destiny. It's a game where you can pick up Call of Duty, Battlefield, and you're locked in these sort of scenarios. That's not MMO. It's a team-based match. Whereas Destiny and Division, it's a global match, or it's a global event, or it's a large, massive group of people playing for the same goal, or a group of goals. But the MMO genre is very fickle. It is. The MMO fan base is, and the reason being, and for good reason, and because you're donating a large part of your time, possibly money, and amount of stress. It is very stressful. I mean, for example, go look up what is required in-raid content in World of Warcraft, what gear score rating, what you have to complete. I think it's mythic gear, you have to be level 110, 120, where they're at now. It takes a lot of dedication and effort, and for a lot of new players, they see this and whoa, what the fuck, level 110? That's a very large gap between 1 to 110. Of course, Blizzard has done a lot to kind of streamline it so players can level up from 1 to 110. But still, there's that dynamic, that a thought in your head is holy shit, this is a very complicated procedure because there's a lot that goes into it. But it's more than just that. If you're putting your time and effort into a game, let's say WildStar, and when you put all that effort in, you get to the end, and the game has sort of an uptick of a grind. It's sort of a really steady curve, and it really got harder and harder, but then you really put the effort in, you bust your ass, and then you get to the end, and the raids are so complicated and difficult, you just can't complete them. And some of these hardcore raid groups are top raid groups that you can list them in WoW. They've completed raids, they've got accolades and achievements for completing raids in a single day or 2 days. I mean, these guys don't play around. This is literally their job. And they're coming back, posting videos on YouTube saying they can't complete it because it's too difficult. The ticks are too fast, meaning like the heals on the enemy can heal themselves too fast, the damage is too great, or the time between they recover. It's a whole mechanics and dynamics that go into finding your, what's it called? I forget the simple word. Finding your rhythm. Let's just say your rhythm. You know, knowing when your opponent's going to attack, knowing when your team needs to sort of heal, to buff, to debuff, to back away, to stun, all these different mechanics, and then come to find out the raid you're doing is beyond. It's like 0.05% people can complete it. And I'm making up a number, but it's so ridiculously low. So yeah, so one thing in particular is, so it's fickle. But then another thing using WildStar again, and I'm not trying to beat WildStar to death. I love it. I think WildStar was a great idea. I think NCSoft had a great concept. But the problem with WildStar is, when you're making an MMORPG, it's very hard to make a game, especially an MMO, that appeals to certain groups of people. Single-player RPGs can get away with that because it's not you don't have to constantly update servers, constantly bring out new content. So you're not with that everyday struggle of trying to push something new into this old, or into this relatively new or old game. Excuse me. Now, essentially what ends up happening is that you kind of just don't make your money back, and eventually games fall off or go through a whole rework. But in WildStar's case, it still is yet to be seen if that game will survive. Now, you had games like Elder Scrolls Online that went through a complete overhaul and changed and evolved and adapted, which is great. There's no way I see Bethesda Studios and Cinemax, I think it was, that worked on this, that I don't... Is it Zenith or Cinemax? It's Cinemax. I say Cinemax and I'm thinking of porn. That's why I'm like double checking. Make sure I'm not saying something wrong. Cinemax Online. Yeah, there it is. Anyway, so Cinemax... Well, let me double check though if I got the right thing. But anyway, the companies that went behind Elder Scrolls Online, they put a lot of stock into that. Same with Star Wars: The Old Republic. They couldn't afford for that game to fail. Cinemax Online Studios. There you go, developer. They couldn't... And the publishers were Bethesda Softworks and Cinemax Online Studios. Alright, cool. But they couldn't afford for that game to fail. I mean, you think about it. If that game bellied up, that's a lot of money they shelled out that they had to pay back to those banks or pay back to whatever. They really put a lot of money and allocated a lot of resources into making Elder Scrolls Online. And it turned out to be a really good game. Took a while for them to fix it, and luckily they got the shit together. But it goes back to what I'm saying before. And I'm not talking about, like, bad patches or, like, big mistakes, kind of like what Andromeda had, Mass Effect Andromeda. Nothing like that. I'm talking about when the game... Because there's things you can fix, but when you're appealing to a certain group of people or a certain sort of niche, it's like being a YouTuber. There's 1,000 different people that do what I do. There's millions of different people that do Let's Plays and gameplay videos. And it's hard to make your stake and claim to get people drawn to you. You got to have something brought to the table that will bring people to come check out your product. I mean, you've got tons of games. I mean, Terra Online. If Terra Online was tab target and not action-oriented combat, I don't care how beautiful that game was, that game would have died. The action-oriented combat and the sort of pedophilic little characters they had going on over there, that really attracted the weirdest kind of people and people that wanted action-oriented combat. Same with Black Desert Online. You know, Black Desert Online supposedly has some of the worst curvatures and learning curves when it comes to a game for MMORPGs because the grind is so bad, and that's what people are telling me. But again, action-oriented combat, a beautiful open world is it's an action-oriented sandbox MMORPG. That's what it's classified as. But it brings something new to the table. But unlike WildStar didn't bring nothing new. So, sort of, in a way, it just couldn't survive. Unless it has something unique as far as action-oriented combat of some kind, or something, you know? Black Desert Online is a sandbox-oriented, massively multiplayer online role-playing game. Yeah, so it's sandbox. And it's also, I call it action combat, because it does use sort of like an action combat style. But the thing is, where does MMOs play a part, though? Where do they go stale and where do they go bad? Well, the genre itself ain't going stale. My qualification for going stale is no new ideas coming out, no new concepts. There are. Like I said, Albion's coming out. You've got... Oh, shoot. What was the other one? There's a whole list of them. I got the list right here for us right now. You've got Albion. You got Ashes of Creation. You've got Dark and Light. I don't know if you're going to classify Dark and Light. You got Crowfall. That's a big one I'm looking forward to. You got tons of concepts out there. They're coming to life. So, the genre itself is okay. It's doing fine. The idea is the idea getting stale? Kind of is, and some parts are. So, what parts are getting stale? Well, how about the fact of tab targeting, or point and click? All right, so point and click works for some games because it's kind of how they're built. For example, Albion Online is a point and click kind of game. You can point and click, move your character there, you target your character with your mouse and launch it and ready to go. Well, that's a niche. That's a certain group of people might like that. Hopefully a lot, because I'm about to play the game and I'm really interested to see how it does. But that's a certain group of players might or might not like it, right? But when you got action-oriented combat, it allows more freedom to move around, more freedom of mobility, so more players would get used to it. And I think that also, in regards, I think it has a lot to do with like the first-person shooter kind of genre, because when you're playing with a controller, if you're playing Call of Duty or Battlefield or things of that nature, you gotta have you have this like freedom of movement, and that's and you're more immersed into the game. So that could be why players like action-oriented combat over tab targeting or point and click, because it's the more immersion that is into it. So you're more part of the game. You don't have to worry about clicking certain buttons. You just instinctively just do it. So it's whatever though. But there are also different subcultures of MMOs as well. Like I said before, you got anime inspired, you got realistic, you've got first person shooter, you've got action oriented combat style, you've got there's some other ones that people use and they're not officially called that. We got carnival style MMORPGs. Somebody once told me Neverwinter is qualified for that because it's locked areas with load time from one area to the next. But it's not like World of Warcraft where you travel to new areas. You have to point and click, go to a map, point and click, like Carnival. You go, let's travel over here and go there. So they call it Carnival style. But the thing is, there's so many different types, so it's kind of hard to make your mark against the world. So what's cool is, though, developers are starting to get smarter about what kind of... They're not just constantly pushing out the same old thing. They're actually trying to come up with new ideas. One big one that really did do a complete overhaul and change was Final Fantasy MMO. Final Fantasy Realms Reborn. They went, literally, Realm Reborn, they went through a whole overhaul twice. They had an MMO before that was called just the same game, but just when the new one came out, they just kind of pushed the time ahead. And then they kind of revamped it over the last year or so, and they've really stuck to the guns and done a great job. Because they figured out that what they brought to the table was their class system. One of the big things about them, besides a beautifully dynamic world, was their class system. Very unique. It's based off of what I love, one of the older games, which is Final Fantasy Tactics. In Final Fantasy Tactics, you had tons of different classes that can evolve and change, and you could customize your group of warriors in any way you wanted to. So Final Fantasy Realms Reborn kind of took that and pushed it a little farther, and it's a lot of fun. But the idea is, the genre ain't stale. And not in my opinion, it isn't stale. I just think it needs to change and grow a little bit, and it seems to do so. One of the big things that kind of helps push that market is you think about it, though, you got these big AAA companies that kind of need to compete with other AAA companies, so they're going to kind of copy the last guy, right? Like Star Wars The Old Republic copied World of Warcraft with tab targeting. I thought it was a horrible market idea because they really could have pushed it. They really could have went with action-oriented combat because that game would have been flawless. Can you imagine fighting with lightsabers, guns, and stuff, but it's not... point and click or tab target is action oriented, about as free flowing as you can get. Secret World Legends kind of tapped into that a little bit. You still have to push buttons to activate your powers, but it's now you don't have to point and click or tab target. You use your mouse to point and click and fire away, which is really cool. I think that concept is great. I think some games do thrive off of tab targeting, and I think some games thrive better off of action oriented combat. But I think it comes down to the developer, and that's what ultimately comes down to the developer and the customer, us, me, you and I. Because, like I said, we're fickle. We're fickle as can be. I've seen so many different complaints about so many different MMOs, and they're generically the same. Either the graphics look horrible, the frame rate's horrible, the story is lacking, the game has little content, in-game content. There's a million different things. And a lot of that comes with either competition, trying to compete with other people, trying to make a quick buck, failing to make enough money, which that goes into indie projects like Kickstarters and things of that nature. Like I said before, MMO and MMORPGs aren't dying off. Matter of fact, they're growing ever so greatly. And I think what it is these companies, old companies and new ones, are looking at the mistakes of the past, and they're ever so growing greatly. Like I said, you got things like Crowfall, Camelot Unchained, Ashes of Creation, Marvel Heroes 2016, or 2017 now, and Guild Wars 2. Even Guild Wars 2 is one of the big ones. Guild Wars 2 is one of the ones that went completely broke the Holy Trinity. They don't have the paladin. I'm sorry, the tank, healer, support, and DPS roles. They don't have it anymore. They didn't as soon as they came out of the game. Their role was completely gone. But then you got games that completely went balls to the wall, completely different. It's like Warframe. Warframe's another game. It's called MMO, and when you think of MMO, you think of games like World of Warcraft, things like that. But it's completely by itself. I classify it as an MMO. People wouldn't. Because I'm like, if I classify Destiny as MMO, I gotta classify World of Warcraft. Warframe as MMO. Because essentially the same thing. Just you have a starting area, you pick a zone, you go to, you load into that zone. That's essentially the same thing. Both are great games. Both do have total opposite effects, by the way. So that's what I'm pretty much saying is where I know people think this is crazy, but where are the MMOs going to be in the future as well? Well, if the genre's doing okay and people are learning from mistakes, then eventually the genre will pick up and you'll see more crazier and crazier ideas. Like Star Citizen. Can you imagine what that game's going to be like when it comes out? So, sum it up for right now, up to where we're at, is the genre's doing okay. The culture's doing fine. You have mistakes in the past like Arcade, WildStar. You have screw-ups like Division. You've had redemptions like Final Fantasy Realms Reborn. You've had one who you've got Elder Scrolls Online, who another redemption story, come back, did good, did okay. There are so many different things that go into making an MMO. MMO is a fragile creature to begin with, because you got to make your money, you got to continuously make your money. You got so many different things that go into keeping the story moving. You got to keep the players moving. For instance, World of Warcraft had a big thing a while back. It was like an article somebody written. It was saying like, how do you keep the players interested? Because like WoW has a level 110 cap, and when players are level 1, I said this before, they look at that 110 cap. Is how do you keep new players and returning players from leaving? And that's something they're going to have to figure out. That's another thing, too, is with MMOs, is how do you keep drawing people in? Oh, great, you got that cool in story that can get people going, but what about the meat and potatoes in between? Like, how do you get them from point A to point B all the way to the end of the story? And that's the one thing MMOs do struggle with a lot. It's that constant keeping a player going. It's clicking and clicking and clicking, because you have to keep the person enthralled. That person has to wake up and look at your product, your game, your MMO, and say, all right, why am I going to play this game over that game? And a lot of time for me anymore, it's kind of like I don't want to do that. Like Guild Wars 2. Guild Wars 2, to me, in my personal opinion, has very little to anything to offer, little to nothing to offer for in-game content. I just don't feel like they have anything. I know they got the new seasons and they're going through that, but just they don't have raids or dungeons, things I would call raids and dungeons. But again, that's my fickle thing. That's what's wrong with me. I could have got spoiled by World of Warcraft and the way they got the crazy massive dungeons with these awesome Omega level bosses that are just completely retarded. I mean, that's just me being spoiled by the certain games I like to play. And that could be a lot of other people as well. But when you take games like Arcade, who just, to me, didn't give a shit about their fan, but if Trion Worlds, an XL game, fucked that game up bad. And that's another MMO that's played by a really bad developer and publisher. Really bad coding as well. And apparently a lot of people say it's pay to win too, so a lot of players just do not want to deal with that. I mean, pay to win is the worst model to go with. Like, I know Albion apparently might have a pay to win model. But I like the game, so I like the concept. And that's, again, me being fickle. But taking away the customer for a second, I think what MMOs are starting to learn is that you can't reinvent the wheel. Obviously, you can't reinvent World of Warcraft or EverQuest. Sorry, EverQuest is like the king, pretty much. EverQuest is like Dungeons and Dragons. So you can't reinvent the wheel, but you can make your own version of it. And that's one thing I think these companies are starting to learn. And they're taking chances, And I think your indie companies and your Kickstarter companies are want to take more chances, because they realize that if they can appeal to a certain group of players, maybe that group of players can then tell their friends and help grow that fan base. And you might not know it, but maybe that fan base is larger than what you consider. But eventually it comes down to a couple of different things. When you talk about the brass tacks of making MMOs, it comes down to money, player viability, will they stay, will they keep staying, and new and recurring players. But then you have your base models, like you have subscription base, pay to play, pay to win. You've got one-time pay only. I mean, you got different versions. So it's always interesting to see how these companies thrive and survive as time goes on. And I think Guild Wars 2 is the only one. I should say, well, no, I think it's the only one that has a complete open model that I know of that's really successful. Guild Wars 2 is the only one, I to my knowledge. Star Wars: The Old Republic has a free-to-play model, but it also has a subscription model. Marvel Heroes, a completely open model. It's a free-to-play game as well. I think, yeah, it's a free-to-play game as well. So I don't know. I think, as far as a game you pay one time, Black Desert Online. I don't think they have a status thing you can buy to give you certain boons and boosts over time. I don't think so. I could be wrong. But very few games have that one-time buy only. They usually have a one-time buy, and it's either subscription or it has a really heavy item mall. I mean, Guild Wars does, but it's not. You can make your own money in game. Like, you can sell your equipment and stuff, and sort of make back the money. Like, you can buy your own subscription apparently. Like WoW has that in a way. I think WoW has that now. You can buy your own subscription. I think I could be wrong, but it's like I said. There are distinctive models that work in this genre. Because companies have to make their money and they got to survive. But I think like I said before, I don't think they're dying out. And I think they are going to keep thriving, getting better. And like I said before, not beating a horse to death. And it just takes time for these concepts to kind of fruition. But games, like I said, these kind of games take longer than usual at times because it's just so much you have to put into it, you know. Like I said, from point A to point B to the very end, you got to keep a player enthralled. You got to keep them going, and you got to keep them returning, and then you got to push out new content to push them even further so they keep spending money on your game and keep buying subscriptions. So it's a very tender subject, and it's a very fragile genre to deal with because it can leave a lot of players sore, especially, like I said, with Arcade, with Division, with Arcade, Division, Destiny, before the expansions. Elder Scrolls Online, I know left a lot of people savage at first because they were just pissed about how the game turned out. So, that's it. That's what my thoughts are on the MMO and MMORPG genre. I think it's going to do great. I think it's going to survive. I don't think it's going to die out. I've never seen a genre die out. To date, I've never seen a genre die out. I have not... I'm trying to think. I don't know a single genre that's died out. If it is, let me know. I'm interested now. If there's a genre of gaming out there that doesn't exist anymore. Because I would really tickle my feathers to actually hear about that. But like I said before, comment below if you're listening to this on YouTube. If not, hit me up on SoundCloud. I'll leave a link in the description below. I love you guys. Thanks for listening. This is Flunkie signing off.